It's trash day, I'm putting you out, it's trash day. I'm putting you out, it's trash day. I'm putting you out of my mind. It's trash day, I'm putting you out, it's trash day. I'm putting you out, trash day. I'm putting you out of my mind. Now I'm gonna clean up, now I'm gonna clean up, now I'm gonna clean up the house. I'm taking all your garbage, taking all your garbage, taking all your garbage.
It starts with some beer, so you shouldn't have fear. Two garbage guys with facts, but they both still have tact. It's that time at last for the best damn podcast. It's Can Crusher Day!
And welcome to Can Crusher Spotlight. I am your host, Mark Martinez, and this week's Spotlight, how can I put it? This guy floats like a butterfly, stings like a bee, he moves like Big Van Vader, and he'll crush you like Bam Bam Bigelow. Guys, it's the big man from OVW, Big Zoe. This interview was fun. We learned a lot about Big Zoe. I don't want to ruin any of it, but there's some backyard stuff involved. Yeah, it's just really good. And to know what he does outside the ring as well, Zoe's a great guy. Right after this, from Collar and Elbow, you're going to hear why. It's Zoe time.
Wrestling. A love and a passion we all share. I've started a wrestling brand. The wrestling brand. A brand founded on the aspects of wrestling. Two entities working together to create a product that connect emotionally for people everywhere. Collar and Elbow is the brand. Passion and love for wrestling is the drive. I am Al Snow, and this is Collar and Elbow, the wrestling brand.
And welcome back to Can Crushers, as we are set to bring you the former OVW TV champion, former OVW Tag Team champion, and now the host of Zotime TV, what has just came back on YouTube recently, Big Zoe. Zoe, welcome to Can Crushers.
Hey, man, I'm glad to be here, Mark. I appreciate the opportunity.
So, I'll get into Zotime TV more later, but I'm excited you're on the same kind of level as me. You like putting your pretty face out there for everybody to see, huh?
Yeah, I don't mind, man. Yeah, I don't mind at all. It's funny. I just told you off air I was going to try not to get into some tangents, but when you said pretty face, it just made me think of a story I want to share real quick. I guess probably back in high school, I was talking to Muhammad Ali. Like, I was on the student panel for the Muhammad Ali Center, where we were trying to get just trying to get the museum up and going and come up with some ideas. So they wanted some teenagers to help come up with ideas. So I had the opportunity and privilege to meet Muhammad Ali, and I gave this off-the-cuff speech to him. Well, it wasn't to him, but he was there. And I said, well, I enjoyed pro wrestling at the time. I was doing, backyard wrestling, pro-am wrestling. And I said, I enjoy wrestling more so than boxing because I'm too pretty to get punched in the face over and over. So then, after I gave that little speech, Muhammad Ali comes up to me, and of course he had Parkinson's, spoke a little slower at this time. He goes, "You said you too pretty?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he kind of did his, I wish I could show you on the air, but he kind of raised his hand up and did that back and forth kind of motion, like, "Yeah, you're kind of pretty." So that's something that like I keep stored away in the bank. So it's like a really cool Muhammad Ali story. I don't get called pretty too often, so I had to bring that up.
Yeah, and that actually just popped out of my mind right now because I just saw your Zotime TV, and I thought, how am I going to bring this about? But we'll talk about it more. But you just trumped me. You talked with Muhammad Ali, so your interview's over. Thanks for coming on Can Crush. No.
That's it. Drop the mic. Boom.
Boom. So let's rewind to Little Zoe time. Who got you involved in wrestling? You know, some people have said it's grandpa, some has been, brother. How did you find wrestling when you were growing up?
Well, I don't know that I can say that my great-grandfather got me into wrestling, but definitely it's something that he and I connected on. He passed away probably, I guess, about 8 years ago now. But he was 99 when he passed away. But during my teenage years, I'd say probably in his earlier 90s, I never knew him to be much of a talker. He was always a stoic, kind of soft-spoken kind of guy, but also kind of gruff in his ways. But I was just flipping through the channels in my younger years. Like I see USWA, and I watched a little bit. But we didn't have cable TV growing up, so pretty much that was the extent of it, was here and there, seeing some USWA, which, being in the Louisville market, was pretty big, watching PG-13 and Jerry King Lawler and guys like that. So I had an interest in wrestling, but it wasn't until probably about 6th, 7th grade during the Attitude Era when I was able to, we actually had cable. Well, I was going over to my buddy's house before we had cable, but that's about the time that I was able to start really getting into it. So, once my great-grandfather kind of caught wind that I was interested in wrestling, then all of a sudden this guy who, never talked on the phone, like we would every Monday almost, we'd call him like, did you see what The Rock did? Oh, man, I can't believe Stone Cold did that. And, so that was something that brought us closer together. So just being a fan, watching it, growing up, and being able to share that with my great-grandfather. And my dad's a fan too, not like a big fan, like he probably couldn't name too many wrestlers in the modern era. But, he would sit down and watch it with me too. So we also connected on that level.
Yeah, it always seems to be the grandfather. Like I said, a couple other people had something else, but it always trickles back to a great-grandfather, grandfather. Mine was actually when it was Hogan and Orndorff. In the cage matches and everything. That's kind of my first memory with my grandfather, watching that on TV. And he's like, this guy right here is really good. And he was always upset that there was so many damn titles. Is what he's like. Everybody's got a title. What's going on?
Right. He would probably crap his pants now if he saw the brand splitting off the WWE and Universal titles in U.S. and then Intercontinental and all these tag champs. They probably, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of titles?
Maybe a little bit of saturation, but we'll get there. So who are some of your favorites growing up? I know you just mentioned like Lawler and PG-13 and The Rock and Stone Cold, but were those the people that you really sunk your teeth into?
I mean, I definitely love The Rock and Stone Cold. They was always mainstream as far as, being in the middle of the story, being the main event. So, I mean, you can't really call yourself a fan of the Attitude Era and not be a big fan for Stone Cold or The Rock. But I will say that I was probably a little bit more of a WCW fan, like during, let's say 97, 98. So I was a big-time Kevin Nash guy. Like, I just loved Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, the NWO, before it got overly saturated.
Oh, yeah.
But I just thought he was the coolest guy alive. Like, Kevin Nash, he'd come out as like he was a bad guy, but he was a good guy. You want to cheer for him because he was cool, which, of course, now growing up, it's like, well, was he really a heel? Was he really a face? The wrestling purists probably didn't prefer that. But, at that time as a teenager, it's like, man, I was a big fan of him because he just had cool hair, cool look, cool walk, cool attitude. He didn't care. So I was a big Kevin Nash fan. But I will say that now in, I guess, more modern times, I look back, like when I had to study film and people that I really admire in retrospect, I say like the Big Van Vaders and Bam Bam Bigerow's, Rikishi, the Godfather, like the guys that were just really big guys like myself that can move. That's what I like to look to, and I'm a fan of to this day. Biggie Langston.
Well,
Yeah.
when we first connected from Chad Miller, I said to you right off the bat via text, I said, I compare you to two of the guys that you mentioned. The way that you move, the way that you just carry yourself in the ring, you remind me a combination of Vader and Bigelow. You just move so fluent, and I'm like, that's you. That you are this year's Vader and Bigelow. So I'm glad you're watching those tapes.
Absolutely. I take that as a huge compliment to know that, people that I emulate and that I idolize and admire, like to look up to, like that my efforts in copying their works and studying their craft is paying off. So that means a lot to me. I appreciate you saying that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So how did you finally get into wrestling? Was it, hey, I really love this, I'm going to go find a school? Or was it the same way that me and my buddies were? You built, a ring outside and tied it up around trees, and then you just started having your own matches in the backyard? What was it?
Well, I mean, of course, the way that any self-respecting wrestling fan would do it, of course, in the backyard is where you start. So me and my buddies, I guess when public access television was still a thing, I guess before YouTube was really much of a thing, we had a wrestling promotion we called IWA. I'm sorry, not IWA. That'd be Ian Rotten, chemical improvement. Although we did watch, study, and admire that, but no, IHW, Intense Hardcore Wrestling. I don't know how intense or hardcore it was, but I mean, we would find stop signs and hit each other on the head, and chairs, garbage cans. We'd climb up chimney. It wasn't really a chimney, but it's kind of a grill thing. It's probably about 15 feet high, and do swantons on each other on top of like a mattress or something. We would have cage matches inside of the local tennis. What do you call it?
Tennis
like
courts?
Tennis court.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's where we'd have our cage matches. So we were. So that's kind of how we got started. Kind of passing tapes around of us doing that on, public access. And there was a show called From Parts Unknown, SPU. Through there, we were able to start connecting with other guys with FPW, Futures of Professional Wrestling. So that's actually where Isaiah got his start. Isaiah, who's one of my best friends and mentors in the business, and Brian Vinson and a lot of those other guys. I had the opportunity to kind of connect with them through the message boards because we connected on through the public access channels. So that's how we kind of first got started. From aligning with them, FPW took it a lot more seriously. They talked about, hey, there's this thing called ring psychology, and there's proper ways of locking up and body slamming and taking a bump. So we were actually, through affiliation with FPW, we'd all put our money together and rent out local armories and put our money, like if there was some professional wrestling fans, let's say if they had a show the night before, they had one the next night, and they have a ring, we'd have the opportunity to get involved in like seminars with those guys, and they'd give us some time to get in the ring and host our own shows and own events, and would like show us the proper way of doing things. So that's kind of how it got started. So for probably about a year, I guess I was about 15 or 16 at this time, we would just travel around Bardstown, Kentucky, and Southern Indiana at various places, hosting our own little wrestling shows. And that's how it got started. I ended up taking a pretty nasty kick to the head from Daniel Quinn. I'm not trying to throw the dude under the bus. He's a great worker now. But at the time, he said, I'm going to do this thing called a Super Saiyan kick to you. I'm like, okay, I like Dragon Ball Z. I didn't know how the move. It wasn't even during a match. It was just, just between match segments. He was like, I want to try this new move out. I was like, all right, cool, go for it. So he did it. I didn't know what did I need to block it? Did I need to post or anything like that? Only thing I know is I just got my ear pierced, and my earring was knocked out, and I heard a lightsaber going off in my head.
Oh man!
That was kind of all I heard. And then I guess at some point, I'm in a car, and I'm like, "Hey guys, where are we at?" So then they're like, for the 50th effing time, we're in the car heading from Bardstown back to Louisville. Now, mind you, this is the first time I had any recollection of saying it, where are we at? But I guess I was incoherently babbling over and over, where are we at? Where are we at? Where are we at? Where are we at? So, needless to say, those guys were a little bit older, and I guess I became a bit of a liability because my dad, they were probably worried that my dad was going to beat them up, to be honest with you. So, unfortunately, I didn't really hear from those guys after that. So my dream of wrestling around, that's probably late 99, early 2000, kind of came to an end, and I focused on football and became a state championship football player at Male. And I went on to college, played college ball, and I always kind of had an itch for wrestling still, but it just kind of seemed like the opportunity had came and gone. Let me pause before I keep going. I've grown up watching OVW a lot, and I actually wrote a letter to Danny Davis, and I took a picture of my shirt off with the webcam. I was 16 years old, 225 pounds, but jacked to the gills for, a freshman, 225 pounds. Took a picture of myself all oiled up, and I was like, hey, Danny Davis, you got to give me an opportunity at OVW. I've been wrestling around the Indies for last year, blah, 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 blah. I'm great, I'm awesome. And he actually wrote me back. And I wish to this day that I'd saved that letter that he sent me or the letter that I sent him or something, but I have no evidence of this now. But he wrote me back. He's like, man, kid, you have a good look, and I'd love for you to come wrestle for OVW when you have to be 18. So just give it a couple years, and, when you turn 18, we can talk business. Of course, by that time, I graduated high school, went on to Murray State to, play college football and to work on focusing on academics. So hadn't really thought much about it. So around while in college, I was in a fraternity, which actually gets to how I got my name, Big Zoe. My fraternity is Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, which is the same fraternity Martin Luther King was in. But our chapter was called Zeta Omicron chapter, so ZO. So I'll get to that part here in a second.
Okay.
So during the step show, there was a little part where I guess I had a solo dance act where toward the very end, like the go home, was I did kind of like a front somersault, took a front bump, and then I did a kip up and did like a back handspring type of gimmick. So they hadn't really thought much of it. That was probably like in 2007. So in 2014, my buddy Frank McIntosh, who we can know him as Frank the Tank, he hits me up after he saw that I went to a local indie show. It had Tommy Dreamer and Sabu was on it. I was posting on Facebook, man, this is an awesome show. Maybe I'll get back into wrestling because I'm starting to get that itch again. I hadn't wrestled at that point since probably 2000. Here it was 14 years later. I'm like, man, I'd like to get back into wrestling. And Frank's like, hey, did you used to wrestle? I was like, well, yeah, I did. How did you know? He's like, I remember back in that step show I saw back in 2007 where you took a crazy front bump on the stage, because I just did a front flip right on my back and then I did a kip up. He's like, I knew that you had to have had some wrestling experience because the way that you dove on the stage. I was like, well, yeah, I actually do. So he's like, well, if you want to, I'm actually a pro wrestler and I'm wrestling at various places like UWA, and I'd love for you to be our muscle in the group. You can be our bodyguard. We're in a group called the Diamond Cartel. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll give that a try. So I came out there just planning to be the bodyguard. And they're like, hey, we actually have an opportunity. If you have your gear that night, they're like, if you want to wrestle, you can wrestle. So, I had a match against this dude named Serious Nero. And it was the greatest thing at the time. Now, if I look back and found it was probably crap, but, I thought it was cool at the time. But fast forward, I had the opportunity to start working the indies, hooked up with Cash Flow. He and I were in a reverse battle royal. And he was impressed with the fact that even though I was newer in the business, I went straight up to him and started punching him in the face. And, he and I were brawling. So afterwards, he's like, man, I got a lot of respect for you because a lot of young guys They don't usually try to come attack me. In battle royals or Royal Rumbles, people usually try to avoid me. But he appreciated the fact that I went toe-to-toe with him. He was like, if you want to up your game, I know you've already been wrestling now at this point for several months, and you have some experience, but I have a wrestling school, SWE, Southern Wrestling Entertainment. He's like, I'd love for you to be able to come join us and get a little bit more training. So I hooked up with SWE and trained under Cash Flow for about a year. And after that kind of came to a conclusion, kept running through the indies for a while. And then Isaiah, who I mentioned was kind of a good friend and a mentor of mine, I was at a OVW show, Run for the Ropes. Me, Isaiah, and Shane Mercer had been talking for a while about going to OVW, but nothing was ever like in stone or official. But I guess Isaiah surprised me because me and my wife just decided, hey, let's go check out this Run for the Ropes Derby show that OVW does on the waterfront every year. And Isaiah was there. I was like, what are you doing here, man? You didn't tell nobody. Like, it was a surprise. So then I asked Gilbert Coursey, I said, Gilbert, what do I have to do to get an OVW at this point? He's like, man, you gotta hook up with Rip Rogers. You just gotta get with Rip, get in the advanced class, and come on. I'm like, dude, at this point I've already been wrestling for a couple of years, not counting that year in Pro-Am, backyard wrestling stuff. But he said, yeah, you hook up with Rip Rogers and you go to his advanced class and we can start getting you on. And I'm just thinking, I don't need any more training. I trained at the Cash Flow for a year and I've been running indies for, thinking I'm kind of full of myself. I was like, all right, if that's what it takes, I'll do it. Now, of course, I ended up going to Rip's class a couple weeks later and learned I didn't know, when watching my language because he said it was a family show. But I didn't know as much about wrestling as I thought I did under the tutelage and learning tree of Rip Rogers, who informed me of how much I still had to learn and helped to guide and mold me for 2 years in pro wrestling. So very, 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 very long story coming to a conclusion because I guess at this point I can't call it long story short. That's how I got
That's fine, but now just like your football career, that you never stop training, right? You're still, at this point, as we're speaking, you still train now, though, right?
Absolutely. Now, I don't, so I'm at the point, after already training for so many years, like, as far as the, I guess the regimented every single, because I was for like 2 years straight, every single Saturday and Sunday religiously, I was training, and I still continue to train as far as weight training and lifting weights and stuff. And I go to, like during the weeks, we'll have pay-per-view for training, and then also have some Thursday night trainings. I don't necessarily go to Rip's class every single weekend, and it's not because there's not great value in that, because there is. It's just that at some point, sacrificing every single Saturday and Sunday when you have kids who are 6 and 8 years old, and then also I work 6 days a week, so I don't have a whole lot of time to spend with the kids and the wife. So I made it a point to kind of titrate that down a little bit. So I do continue to train. It just looks a little bit differently.
I understand the 6 days a week thing as a garbage man, and I understand the wife and the kids thing. So that's why everything's got to be regimented here too, because happy wife, happy life, right?
All right, exactly.
So, no, that you took about, you were worried about questions and everything. You just knocked off about 5 or 6 questions because they were all just answered in that long thing. Your soliloquy, I guess. So I'll jump ahead. Differences now. You worked with Danny when he owned OVW, and now Al owns it. What do you see different? What do you see the same? Has there been any differences?
Yeah, there's definitely some differences. I do think it's kind of like I guess boiling a lobster, where you got to turn the temperature up a little bit. So it's not like all of a sudden the day that Al came in, oh my God, he's changing the world all over. It's kind of like little subtle differences that now looking back on things like about a year later, it's like, oh, things have changed a lot. Danny obviously did so much for the business, especially the Louisville area, with the introduction of OVW. that there's not a negative thing that I'm willing to say about what he had going. I will say that obviously, after doing it for so long, you do get a little bit tired. And he admitted that, we probably needed some fresh lenses. So having Al come in with a fresh perspective, and he obviously had some history with OVW, being there during WWE days and TNA days, and, he'd had history with OVW. So whenever Danny made the decision to sell it to Al, Al said, I have a big vision to make this bigger than it's ever been. And through various changes, like the 1000th episode that we had was huge on 4th Street, where we had pretty close to, 1,000 people watching us with eyes on us. We've been on, national pay-per-views now. We've partnered up with TNA Impact Wrestling. There's just been a countless number of opportunities and partnerships, changes as far as not necessarily renovating the arena, but just reorganizing and restructuring things, the way that the card is formatted, the different matches and the feuds, the thought that goes into various, segments. So there's definitely some changes, and Al will help you to see where you need some improvement, help you to step up your game, and help you to see, hey, you think you're good, but he'll humble you. And I don't mean it in a negative way, because he'll tell you, hey, this is what you're doing well, but this is why what you're doing isn't making a whole lot of sense, and why it's not translating to the reaction that you want to get from the fans. And he really breaks it down to you in an academic kind of way, so where you don't have the choice but to respect it. So being able to sit under that learning tree, of course, with what all Rip has given us as a foundation, has been very instrumental as far as getting OVW in the direction of the next level. I think we still got some work, but we're getting there.
Yeah, what you just spoke about, getting the criticism back or everything, the snow scale is what it's called that they released WrestleMania weekend, that Chad Miller and Al Snow both have told us on Can Crushers that they want everybody to succeed. Everybody's goal, WWE, TNA, anywhere, and I'm not saying bigger, but you know what I mean, bigger. So the snow scale is going to get you there. When they told you guys the Wednesday before it got released to everybody that the snow scale was coming out, did you step back and say, damn, this is going to be really awesome? This is going to help me out as well, along with, the youngsters in the locker room.
Now, I think there's a piece of you, you get there because the adult, mature side of you sees that this is being done with your better judgment in mind. But I think it's kind of like a kid being told to eat his vegetables. It's like, yeah, I know it's going to be big and strong and whatever, but it's kind of like goes back to that critiquing thing where it's like, oh, man, it's going to be another barometer for where maybe I need to step my game up. And that's humbling. But when you just digest it and say, but this is for my good, this is for the good of the company, this is going to benefit me, then, yeah, I see the great benefits and the purpose behind it. So I do look forward to us being able to implement that. But it does make you nervous, because these numbers and these results, this report card, if you're measured on the snow scale on an off week, then that means Impact Wrestling, TNA, and whatever other scouts are going to see, hey, Zoe had a pretty crappy week. But, on the inverse, if I had a really killer match or if I'm, really stepping up and doing great, then they'll also get to see those results. So for better or for worse, it is what it is. And I think that the benefits are going to outweigh any pride or ego.
That's a great perspective. I really didn't look at it that way. Just because you're actually the first wrestler since then from OVW I got to talk about the snow scale since the release of it. So yeah, that's great how you said if you're a little down in the dumps today and you don't put a stellar match on, yeah, TNA could say, Zoe slacking this week, worrying about what he's going to go eat later on, huh?
Right.
So working with TNA, you got to have a match on Clash in the Bluegrass, which if you say about 5 times fast, it doesn't end up that, because I've said it like that. But
Yeah.
How
Remembering it's hard enough.
right?
That's what I'm saying. Right.
How was that working with TNA? And when you were backstage, did you pick like Scott D'Amore's ear? Did you talk to any of the, I don't want to say bigger guys because you're huge, so, but you know what I mean, any of the TNA talent? Did you pick their ears or anything?
Well, absolutely, man. It'd be really foolish to not take advantage of that opportunity. Now, I mean, Scott was super busy, and he was kind of in closed-door meetings and in offices with people more important than myself at the moment, so I didn't really get to bend his ear too much. But, as far as, of course, working with Moose, working with Jay Bradley, working with Cash Flow, we obviously had to do some communicating to make sure we're on the same page and the egos don't get in the way of what we're doing, just have an opportunity to entertain the fans, put on a good match. So, of course, watching guys like Moose on Impact and then being able to work with them, that was really cool. At the same time, being able to talk to, the Ohio boys, just getting to know them a little bit better and some of the talent that TNA has. Those guys are getting to see that they're so much like us in the sense that our locker room is full of goofballs. Like, they are silly, down-to-earth goofballs, and we are all kind of in a state of arrested development, as Rip Rogers would say. Like, pretty much the state that whatever age you start the business, that's pretty much what age you are perpetually. Like, you're just kind of stuck at that age. So I mean, we are all very silly, and getting to know those guys on a better level and joking and watching other people's matches. It was really cool. And then picking their brains on what is it like to work for this company and to be at the level that you're at, and just kind of soaking it in, but also being able to respect and appreciate them for humans and that they have their own shortcomings and their own challenges and their own things that they're overcoming. It helps to humanize it, which can be really inspiring because, like, oh, okay, they're just like me. So it's just a matter of time, patience, and effort before I can be on that level also, just persistence.
I like the comment that you said you're stuck at the age that you get into it because apparently I am 7 then. Not that I've ever been in the business, but I love the business, so I am mentally 7. And thank God the wife's not home or she would jump on and say, yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Yep. I'm married at 7.
Great.
That's it till you make it. At least, you're mature enough to get across the aisle. That's the main thing.
Right. So, big event in the near future with OVW. The first ever draft combine is going to be June 1st. Again, haven't talked to many about it. You're right in the midst of it. What is the buzz going on either in the locker room or out just in your circle of others outside of OVW? What is the big buzz going on?
Well, a lot of people that aren't necessarily on the inside track are kind of wondering, well, what are some of those events going to be as far as how am I going to be measured? So I see a lot of people that are working on their bench press, a lot of people working on their pull-ups. I see a lot of people that are running and just practicing, honing their craft. So there's definitely a lot of excitement within the locker room. So for those people that are interested in getting an opportunity to have a scholarship to be a part of the school, and not just OVW as a wrestling school, but actually, to have a sports entertainment degree, to have an associate's degree, and to be able to get a scholarship that's going to cover housing and tuition and all that stuff. People are pretty excited. And there's just a lot of buzz in, Susquehanna area about it. And I'm sure nationally, like just looking at social media. And I've heard through the grapevine that Ring of Honor is replicating kind of similar system, which kind of shows when you're doing something good, you become a trendsetter. So if people are taking notice of OVW in that way, then it's pretty inspiring. But I think it's forcing a lot of the guys in the locker room to recognize, hey, we got to step our game up, myself included, as far as if we're getting all these basically phenomenal athletes from all across various walks of life, whether they're ex-NFL, bodybuilders, amateur wrestlers, whatever they could be, that are going to already have some advantages, then, I don't want to lose my job. I got to save my spot, so I need to step it up. So, yeah, it's kind of been encouraging for a lot of people, but also a little nerve-wracking, just being completely honest.
Yeah, I can see both sides. I go to a lot of wrestling up here around the Pittsburgh area, and I've talked to some of the guys up here, and I know some are going to be making a trek down there for that. So nationally, you're right. It's all over the place. This could actually be worldwide. That I don't have my pulse on anybody in Europe or anything right now, but you're right. This is amazing right now.
Absolutely.
So
it shows how Al is constantly thinking outside the box. So another big change to being part of OVW during this time.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't mention the network, but opening up the OVW network as well is huge because it just opens it up for everybody to see across the world as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's get into some of your in-ring stuff. And I personally didn't know that Cash Flow ended up being your trainer, because I was going to say you're always having run-ins with Cash Flow and the Entourage. Like, what the hell, man? They're all, anytime that you're getting the push, you were TV champion, and all four of them kind of got in your way. What's the beef with them, especially the Entourage? They're just slimy. Let me say it that way.
Yeah, there's some clowns, man. Entourage. As far as Cash Flow, so taking it back to a couple of years on OVW, there was a little group established circa 2016 called the Legacy of Brutality. So the very first member of Legacy of Brutality was myself, managed by Josh Ashcraft. Soon after, Isaiah joined the show, and then Cash Flow joined. So it was kind of the four of us running roughshod on OVW. This is before Zoe was a much nicer, or as Gilbert Corsi referred to me, angelic version of myself. So we had kind of akin to, I guess, NWO. We were heels and we were doing nasty heel stuff, but the fans couldn't help but to cheer for us. So it's like, okay, so are we really heels if they keep cheering? So it was, you always had that segment of fans that are going to cheer for the really cool bad guys. But then, we got our fair share of boos also when we, did Tyler Matrix or one of the fan favorites dirty. So that's kind of how Cash Flow and I really cemented and actually before that in SWE, we were in a group together. So I've been in a couple of factions with Cash Flow. So it's kind of like the Diesel and Shawn Michaels thing. Good friends, better enemies kind of deal. You're
clearly Shawn Michaels. With that mug that Cash Flow has, you're clearly Shawn Michaels.
Well, Muhammad Ali says I'm kind of pretty, so we'll go with that.
All right.
So, but yeah, so that's kind of the history he and I have. So for the more casual fan or more newer fan of OVW, that's why Cash Flow and I have so much beef, because we were very great friends. He was my mentor, my big brother, somebody I looked up to. And after so much disrespect, it boiled to a head, and we're not quite as nice anymore. Anyways, as far as the Entourage goes, so whenever I first won the television title for the first time, I'm a two-time TV champion. First time I won it, it was from DL3. I beat him in about 30 seconds for it. Cashed in my opportunity to have the title shot. Beat him in about 30 seconds for it. So then I was defending my title against him at a Saturday Night Special shortly after that. He ended up getting Randall Floyd to get involved in the match, which cost me the title. Then we had another match with a three-way that involved Randall Floyd. This is when Randall Floyd wasn't quite as nice either. And they double-teamed me and again lost the title. I was unable to retain or recover the title at that point. So DL3 and I kind of had some history going back from there, like, a couple years ago. And I guess whenever Shiloh came into the mix, for whatever reason, he kept getting into my business. And then at some point, Shiloh and DL3 decided to join up. So I had my history with DL, I had my history with Shiloh, and I guess they just want to stay a thorn in my side. So every time I see them messing with one of the smaller wrestlers or one of the other guys, like just double teaming or triple teaming, and taking advantage, taking liberties on the younger wrestlers, I feel like it's a duty of mine to kind of stick up for those guys. So I'll often find myself coming in, trying to make a save, helping those guys out, because I just don't like seeing people getting bullied and doing to people what I used to do in the LOB.
Well, on that same aspect, because you're clearly reading my notes and we're only doing this over voice, my next question was, is the legacy of brutality ever going to come back around, as Isaiah has just returned to OVW?
Yeah, he has. I'm not really sure exactly what direction that's going to take, and I'm not one that can read into the future. I know that I've had a long history with all three of those other guys in that group, Ashcraft, Isaiah, and Cashflow. It would take a lot of reconciliation for us to ever go down that road again. I never say never, but right now my current path, my current trajectory isn't necessarily aimed there. But you never know what's going to happen. That's the beautiful thing about pro wrestling, is you never know.
If you just get pushed far enough, the charismatic Zoe could turn into Nasty Zoe all over again, right?
If there's a rhyme or reason, if there's a catalyst for change, then, hey, you never know what could happen.
So shifting gears a little bit, if Zoe wasn't a wrestler, what would Zoe kind of be doing? Barring from your real life right now, let's stay Zoe, but would you be a garbage man like us? Would you be a construction worker? Because you're a big guy. I didn't see you working at like Walmart or anything at the customer service.
I don't know. Being a door greeter sounds like a pretty sweet gig. I don't know. I do have my current gig, but you said barring that, what would I be doing?
Well, you can talk about it. You can get there, yeah.
Want me to go and go there? Okay. So currently I am a social worker. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I've always had a desire to help other people. So with that, when I went to college, I decided I was going to become a therapist. So I actually started off as a psychology major because everybody's like, I want to be a therapist. That means I need to become a psychologist. Just kind of apples and apples. You just kind of figure that's the path you got to go. But I got educated by a professor that said, hey, actually, you can become a therapist several different ways, one of which is by becoming a social worker, getting your master's in social work and your LCSW, your licensed clinical social work certification. You can do that rather than having to go, an extra 4 or 5 years of grad school and getting your PhD in psychology. So I opted to switch my major halfway through my junior year and did that. So I became a social worker. I worked as a child protective service worker for a few years. I was a therapist for a few years, and I'm currently a therapist for veterans, as a child and family therapist. I currently work in a private practice on the weekends, and I lived in a boarding school in a middle school as a middle school counselor for a couple of years. So I've been all over the gamut as far as trying to find ways to help people and to feed my soul and to, of course, feed my family while feeding my soul, and just finding ways to give back. So that's been kind of my life's calling.
And is that, this is just a follow-up question, and that's one of your biggest passions, to give back across the board, your family, your friends, others, just that's you in a nutshell, correct?
Yeah, I think that sums up pretty good.
Okay. Shifting gears back over to wrestling, then I'll give you the social media stuff. If you could pick your dream match, and I'm gonna stop and make sure everybody says this because I always make 3 parts of this dream match. Where would it be? The stipulation, and who would it be against? everybody says the who, but we want to know the stipulation and where, because it just tags another, like, if you say Madison Square Garden, that's kind of like the epicenter for wrestling. Everybody wants to know, or would you want to wrestle in Japan? You know, something like that. So those three, where, who, and the stipulation of the match.
Okay, well, let's start off with the where. And this is going to be for people that grew up where and when and how I grew up. It might feel cliche, but for the fans that aren't as privy to my life, it might be a surprise. I'm not going to go with Madison Square Garden. Of course, that's kind of the easy way out, but I'd say Louisville Gardens. You know, to me, if somebody could up the $1 million or whatever it would take to get Louisville Gardens back to where it could be, like my childhood of watching USWA wrestling, like, and the history that's in that building. Like, I've had the opportunity to wrestle in the Coliseum and in Evansville, but I've never wrestled in Louisville Gardens, so I would love for this dream match to take place there. That's just, I guess you could say, a goal of mine, but I don't know how ambitious of a goal it is unless my goal is to raise the money to clean it up and to get it back in occupancy. But it would be, it'd be Louisville Gardens. I would say a last man standing match, and I would like that to be against Kevin Owens.
Wow.
So, for rights to the last name Owens.
Wow. Yeah. That one I did not. I thought you were going to go old school with us, and since, you know, the comparison of you and Vader or you and Bigelow, I know that, you know, both being gone and everything, but I'm just saying, like, you could have went there, but Kevin Owens, he's one of my...
I have a chance against Kevin Owens. I don't know that I have a chance against Vader or Van Dam.
I don't know. Owens is dastardly. He will do whatever he needs to do, and unless you're going to go back to the brutality, I don't know if you're going to be able to take Owens. So I don't know.
Hey, I'm just saying, man. Just like Finn Balor knows, sometimes you got to unleash the demon to do what you got to do. I'm pretty good at code switching, man. I know when I need to turn it on, where I need to do what I need to do. So I would be happy to have that dream match, and the fact that dream match is one that actually could realistically come to fruition. You know, as much as I love and respect and admire Vader and Van Dam, you know, that literally is a dream match. But I could realistically fight Kevin Owens someday. He's a big guy who is agile. He has the ability to move. He's powerful. He is, you know, him or Samoa Joe. I'd love to have a triple threat, him and Samoa Joe and Zoe. That'd be dope.
That would be dope. I completely agree. That would be awesome. And the Louisville thing could happen too. Thank you for not saying, you know, Charlotte or Madison Square Garden. You are the first person that's, one, answered the question correctly, and two, has gone somewhere besides those ones. So, Zoe wins the game, guys. When you're listening to this, Zoe wins.
I win.
So,
win a chicken dinner.
A couple more things. Advice. What advice would you give to wrestlers just getting into the business now that nobody told you back then?
Well, it's kind of cliche, but it's kind of one of the things that I mentioned in my podcast, Showtime TV. But if you have a dream, go for it. Consistency is the key to success. So I would say, number one, define your realistic definition of success, because you can't really make a goal if you don't write it down. If you don't define your goals, and you're just kind of spinning your wheels. So I would say, number one, identify whatever it is that you want to do. Be passionate, be realistic, be humble, be driven, be consistent. When I say consistent, that means that as opposed to only focusing on just what you're good at and giving up as soon as, you know, stuff hits the fan and it doesn't feel comfortable anymore, I say lean into discomfort, and I would say keep on fighting for whatever it is that you want to do. So just being consistent. So if that means going to the gym, even on the days when you're too tired to go to the gym, go to the gym, go to training, even on the days when you don't feel like going to training and you're hungover, you know, go to training. if if there's an opportunity to get booked on a show, then I say take that opportunity. Be consistent, be humble, but mostly be patient, because nothing in this business, nothing in this sport comes quickly. Some people, you're going to have an anomaly. You're going to have that outlier that maybe things come a little bit quicker to. Maybe opportunities are, for whatever reason, they're able to get that. But for the vast majority of us, it's going to be patience, because you never know when that main eventer, that number one guy that everybody's expecting to do big things, is going to go down injured. And now the promoter, the booker, well, who's next in line? After a while, it's kind of a war of attrition. So being consistent, being humble, being in the right place at the right time, being respectful. And I can't say that nobody ever gave me this advice, but you don't fully digest it until you're in the moment. So these are words I want to say to a younger person or a newer person, in hopes that some of that will kind of sink in.
Yeah, that's kind of great life advice too. Not just with wrestling, any dream that you're pushing towards. If you want to be, again, we always throw a garbage man on, because that's what we are. If you want to be the best garbage man in the world, you have to throw the bags the right way. You have to just continue to push it and do what you do to the best of your ability. Correct?
Absolutely.
All right, so recently, meaning Saturday, you got back on YouTube, and you have rekindled, restarted, re-energized Zotime TV on YouTube. Tell us a little bit about that.
All right, so my daughter, she's 8. And she's just gotten into YouTube so much, just watching all these, teeny boppers on YouTube. And quite honestly, it's like, give it a rest. But she's constantly wanting to do YouTube channels. And she wants to do unpackaging. She has all these aspirations. And as the daddy, she wants me to be able to help her facilitate that. So I'm like, she has so much interest in YouTube, and she stays on it. And quite honestly, I stay on YouTube a lot too, usually listening to stuff, listening to, The Daily Show, or listening to different WrestleMania, or whatever I might be listening to, various podcasts, Brene Brown. A lot of times just driving when I have a commute, I just plug in my phone and listen to things on YouTube. And because, kind of hearing how much my daughter's interested in it, it's kind of made me interested in figuring out what can I do to help her to kind of hone her own YouTube channel. And I figured the best way to kind of practice with that is trial and error with my own. So when I realized that I hadn't been doing the best job myself with keeping up with my fans on social media, I said, I just don't feel as though I'm touching too many people just by typing a random status here and there. I'm not big into selfies as far as getting on Instagram and doing all that. And I'm really not just Snapchat. Although I have all these accounts, I said, what if I just start recording myself, just talking, I love listening to other people talk when they have something worth saying. So maybe that's something I can do. Maybe if 8-year-olds are this passionate about YouTube, then there's probably some 80-year-olds that are equally as passionate about it. And maybe somewhere in between, I might have something to say that will reach somebody. So I just decided, let me start, maybe at least once a week, putting out some videos and some content, because I do have what I feel to believe kind of sort of a unique vantage point in the world, just because I am a pro wrestler, I am a therapist, I am a social worker, I am a father, I am a husband. And, I just said, let me go ahead and start a YouTube channel and see if maybe I can touch some people and reach out. I thought it'd be fun for me, therapeutic, cathartic, my own personal journal that I get to share with the world. But also maybe I can say a few things that if one or two of my words resonate to somebody, it helps them, then I've probably done my job.
Yeah, that is a great point, because YouTube's the way. Regular cable and everything's going down the tubes. Literally, my son is on YouTube all the time. He doesn't care what's on the cable networks at all. At all.
Right.
And
Yeah.
quick plug for kind of his, we took a little bit of a hiatus. His is called The Mark and Ethan Show. And Zoe, when you do one with your daughter, you have to do the Eat It or Wear It challenge. Make sure you look that up.
Oh,
It's amazing.
either where
You are
Yes,
covered.
you are.
You're covered in food. It's great.
Oh man, that sounds very scary. I like to eat food, but I don't know about being covered in it. It sounds wasteful. But I'll see what's going on.
Okay.
She
All right.
was trying to convince me to do some challenge where you take a dart, you throw it at a dartboard with the name of different stores, and whichever store you get, you buy something from that store. I'm like, you're using your allowance money with that. But I'm not big on that. But she was coming up with, let's do this challenge, let's do that challenge. Well, I don't want to do no challenges, but if that's what they're into, we'll see. I'm open to it.
It really is what they're into, dude. It really is. So I know you said you've been slacking on social media. This is your chance now to brighten it back up. Tell all our followers and anybody else that's going to listen where they can find you on social media so you get that little uptick in new fans.
Oh man, I should have came ready with the stuff written down. Let's see. The best way to find me, honestly, is on Facebook on my fan page. So that is Big Zoe Wrestle. So if you just look up on Facebook, just look up Big Zoe Wrestle. I'm pretty easy to find. So that's the best way. I also, on YouTube, if you look up Zoe Time TV, then that is my YouTube channel. I think that my Twitter is also Big Zoe Wrestle. What is my Snapchat that I never use? Zoe Time, maybe? I don't know. I had to get back to you on the Snapchat. I think it was Zoe Time or something.
Okay, we'll have all those tagged, and we'll put a link from our page to your page to listen to this and everything. So
Zoe is just Z-O. Some people like to put it like Zoe with the E. It's not no E, just Z-O, like Zeta Omicron, Z-O.
right.
So if you look up Big Zoe or Zoe Time, it's Z-O.
So this has been a quick hour. It really has. Thank you for coming on Can Crushers. Anything else you want to say? Do you want to throw Chad Miller under the bus? I tried to have everybody say something silly about Chad.
I can't say much bad about that guy. He's a really good dude, man. He's always, coming into the locker room, just having positive things to say and giving various opportunities to the guys. So I'm all about talking crap. I can't say too much bad about Chad. I just appreciate the opportunities and stuff he's given us. So, yeah.
Darn it. I'm going to get one of you guys to say something bad about him because, no, he's a great guy. You're right. He is a great guy.
He smells like bologna. No, that's not even true, but it's funny, though.
That's good.
He smells like boiled bologna.
All right, Zoe, thanks for coming on, and I'll see you in a couple weeks down in Louisville.
I look forward to it, bro.
There's something about this Chad Miller guy that everybody from OVW likes. I can't get one person to say something bad about him or throw him under the bus or something. I don't know if he's cutting the paychecks down there in OVW, but no. Chad's a great guy. I try all the time. And all your locker room has your back, Chad, so that's good to know. How about Zoe saying he wants a triple threat match with Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe? That would be amazing. That really would. This, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, it was a great interview, fun. Got to know a lot about Big Zoe. Stoked that I'll be able to hang out with Zoe when we go down to Louisville. Yeah, I'm excited. Guys, again, OVW Network, $4.99 a month. Make sure you check it out. And as always, thanks to Al Snow and Chad Miller. That smells like bologna, but nonetheless, thanks for making this all possible. Can Crushers love you. And Big Zoe, thanks once again. Guys, remember, just because you're trash doesn't mean you can't do great things. It's called a garbage can, not a garbage cannot.